It was a very busy weekend in Hollywood. The streets of Beverly Hills were full of fancy cars. Photographers held their cameras high, trying to take the best pictures. Fans stood behind barriers, hoping to see their favorite movie stars. That night, a very special event was happening, a big charity gala in Beverly Hills. Many famous people were coming. The event was to help young actors and filmmakers follow their dreams. But among all the stars, two names were the most exciting: Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. At first, the plan was simple. Keanu and Sandra would arrive at the event separately. They would walk the red carpet, answer questions from reporters, and enjoy the night. But just a few hours before the gala, Keanu had a different idea. Instead of sitting in separate cars in traffic, he thought they should go together. "Why don't we take the coastal highway?" Keanu suggested. "It's peaceful and far from all the traffic." Sandra thought about it for a moment. "That actually sounds really nice." And just like that, their night changed. Keanu's red Ferrari zoomed down the highway. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky with beautiful golden colors. The road was quiet, the waves of the ocean rolling beside them. Keanu had one hand on the wheel, looking calm and relaxed. Sandra sat next to him, her hair blowing gently in the wind. She turned to Keanu and smiled. "This reminds me of something." Keanu smirked. "Are you thinking about speed?" "At least this time there's no bus about to explode," Sandra joked. Keanu laughed. "And this time I'm the one driving?" Sandra raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, and that makes me wonder. Have you actually gotten better at driving?" Keanu made a funny face. "Are you saying I don't know how to drive?" Sandra laughed. "I just remember that in Speed, my character had to drive because you were too busy dealing with a bad guy." Keanu shook his head with a smile. "Well, at least this time we're just going to a nice event. No bad guys here." Sandra folded her arms. "Never say that too soon." The road stretched ahead of them, peaceful and empty. But then something on the car's dashboard beeped. Low fuel level. Keanu frowned and tapped the screen. "Oh?" Sandra glanced at the fuel gauge and laughed. "Don't tell me you forgot to fill up the gas?" Keanu sighed. "I guess I was too busy enjoying the drive." Sandra pointed ahead. "Well, lucky for you, there's a gas station right there." Keanu saw it. It was an old gas station, small and quiet. There were only a few gas pumps, a little store, and an old sign that blinked on and off. The place looked almost empty. Keanu slowed down and parked the car. The Ferrari's engine purred softly before turning off. Sandra took off her sunglasses and stretched. "Since we're stopping, I'm going to get a coffee." Keanu nodded. "I'll fill up the car. See you inside." Sandra opened the car door and walked toward the small store. Keanu got out, opened the fuel tank, and picked up the gas pump. Everything seemed peaceful. But at that moment, someone saw them. Near two motorcycles, two men leaned against their bikes. They were watching. They wore old leather jackets with chains wrapped around their wrists. Their dark sunglasses hid their eyes. They didn't look like normal travelers. When Sandra walked past them, one of the men whistled softly. The bigger man had thick arms covered in tattoos. He smirked. The other man, who was skinny with a gold tooth, leaned forward. "Hollywood, huh? You don't see that every day." The big guy kept looking at Sandra. She didn't notice them and walked into the store. But the two men didn't stop staring. The one with the gold tooth chuckled. "Maybe we should say hello." The big man grinned. Then, without waiting, they started walking toward the store. They thought Sandra was an easy target. The store's door closed behind Sandra. A small metal bell rang above her head. The place was small and old. The shelves were full of snacks and drinks. The floor had scratches from years of people walking in and out. At the back, an old TV played a baseball game with no sound. A radio was playing slow country music. Sandra walked to the coffee station and grabbed a cup. Outside, Keanu finished putting gas in the car. But his eyes stayed on the store's glass window. He saw something he didn't like. The two bikers were on the move. The big guy was walking slowly, cracking his knuckles. The skinny guy with the gold tooth kept his hands in his pockets. They crossed the parking lot with confidence, like they had all the time in the world. Keanu saw their eyes locked onto Sandra. He noticed the way they smirked at each other before stepping inside. Keanu didn't move yet. He just watched. Sometimes the best thing to do is to wait and see. Sandra was still making her coffee. She tore open a sugar packet and poured it in. Then she heard footsteps behind her. She frowned slightly and looked at the reflection in the coffee machine's glass. The two men were there. The big guy leaned against the counter beside her, acting casual. The skinny guy stood a little farther away, staring at her. Sandra stayed calm. She was used to being noticed in public. The big guy spoke first. Well, look who we have here." Hollywood in person. Sandra turned slowly, holding her coffee. She forced a polite smile. I guess I've been spotted. The skinny guy chuckled and looked her up and down. What brings a woman like you to a place like this? Sandra noticed that they were standing in a way that blocked part of the exit. She took a quiet breath and kept her voice steady. Just grabbing some coffee while my friend puts gas in the car outside. The big guy raised an eyebrow. Left you all alone in here? Doesn't seem very safe. Sandra smiled, but inside she was on high alert. Oh, I'll be fine. Outside, Keanu saw everything. And he knew exactly what to do next. Sandra let out a short laugh. I think I'll be fine, she said, putting a lid on her coffee. She grabbed her cup and turned to leave, but the skinny biker stepped to the side, blocking her way. Whoa, already leaving. But we just started talking, he said with a smirk. Sandra kept her face calm, but inside she was on high alert. She didn't like the way this was going. Outside, through the glass window of the store, Keanu Reeves stood watching. He had been standing there for a while, leaning against the side of the building, just observing. He saw how the two bikers were standing too close to Sandra. He noticed how she shifted her posture just slightly, a small but clear sign that she understood what was happening. But Keanu didn't move yet. He wanted to be sure what these two men were really up to before stepping in. Inside, Sandra tried stepping to the side, hoping to walk past the skinny biker, but he moved with her, mirroring her steps and keeping her trapped. The bigger biker grinned, crossing his arms as he leaned against the counter. Bet you're used to rude guys in Hollywood, huh? But we're real gentlemen around here. Sandra tightened her grip on her coffee cup. Now she knew for sure, this wasn't just a friendly chat. They were testing her, trying to see how much they could push. She kept her voice calm but firm. If you're a gentleman, then I'm sure you wouldn't mind letting me through. The skinny biker grinned wider, his teeth showing. Of course. But before you go, how about a little toast? Maybe we could even take you somewhere more fun. Outside, Keanu's face hardened. He saw the biker with the gold tooth gesturing as he spoke. He saw Sandra take a small step back. He knew exactly what was happening. The bikers were pushing her limits, waiting to see if she would resist. If she tried to leave, they might try to stop her. Keanu took a slow, steady breath. But he still didn't go inside. Not yet. He wanted to see just how far these men would go. The big guy chuckled and shook his head. Come on now, no need to be scared. The skinny biker smirked. We just want to talk a little. Sandra knew she had to get out now. She took another step back, positioning herself near the aisle, trying to find a way to slip past them. But then, just as she was about to move, the skinny biker reached out and grabbed her arm. Sandra froze. And at that exact moment, Keanu Reeves pushed himself off the wall and started walking toward the store. His steps were slow, controlled. But now he was ready to act. Inside, the store fell into silence. Sandra felt the skinny biker's grip tighten on her arm. Her eyes narrowed. She didn't scream, didn't panic, but she knew she needed to act fast. The big biker, still leaning against the counter, smirked. What's the matter? Don't like a little attention? The skinny biker squeezed her arm slightly, watching her reaction. Sandra felt her heart beat faster, but she kept her voice steady. I told you I need to go. She pulled her arm back, trying to break free without making a scene. The skinny biker held on just a little longer. Relax, Star, we're just having fun. Then the store door swung open. The sound of the metal bell rang through the room. Keanu Reeves stepped inside. His steps were slow and controlled, each footstep making the old wooden floor creak slightly. The air inside the store changed immediately. The store clerk, a skinny kid wearing a backward cap, froze behind the counter, sensing the sudden shift in tension. Sandra felt it too. And most importantly, the bikers felt it. The skinny biker was still holding Sandra's arm, but now he wasn't moving. His eyes slowly lifted to Keanu, who had stopped just a few feet away. The bigger biker uncrossed his arms, standing up straight. Well, he muttered, scanning Keanu from head to toe. Keanu didn't say a word at first. He simply glanced at Sandra, checking if she was okay. It was quick, just a small movement, but Sandra understood. The skinny biker saw this silent exchange and let go of Sandra's arm. But he tried to act like he was still in control. And you didn't even introduce us to your friend, he said, forcing a smirk. Keanu finally spoke. His voice was calm, smooth, but there was something in it, something dangerous. You're going to apologize to her, he said. The skinny biker squinted. What? Keanu didn't repeat himself. Instead, he took a step forward. Just one. It was a small step, but both bikers moved back half an inch. It was subtle, but Keanu noticed. And the bikers noticed that he noticed. The big biker let out a fake chuckle. Listen, Reeves, we didn't do anything. We were just messing around. Keanu kept his eyes on the skinny one. Apologize, he repeated. The store clerk swallowed nervously. Sandra stood still, watching. The skinny biker smirked. I think you're taking this a little too seriously, man. Relax. Keanu took another step forward. Now he was barely a meter away. Close enough that they could feel his presence, like a heavy weight pressing down on them. Keanu tilted his head slightly. I don't repeat myself. The skinny biker's smirk faded. He looked at the bigger biker. The bigger biker didn't say a word. He understood, the game had changed. They were no longer in control. The skinny biker sighed sharply. Then in a low voice he muttered, Sorry? Sandra crossed her arms. That was pathetic. Keanu raised an eyebrow slightly. The bigger biker clenched his jaw, feeling the humiliation settle in. He looked at Keanu. Happy now? Keanu shrugged. Almost. The store clerk held his breath. The bigger biker inhaled deeply, then grabbed his friend's arm. Let's go. But before stepping outside, he turned and gave Keanu one last look. This ain't over. Keanu didn't blink. He just watched them leave. The sound of their motorcycles roared through the gas station as they rode away. Finally, they were gone. Sandra let out a long breath, realizing just how tense she had been. Keanu watched her for a moment. You okay? She let out a small laugh. Yeah. Just didn't expect my coffee stop to turn into an action scene. The store clerk was still standing there, mouth slightly open. Dude, that was insane. Keanu didn't answer. He was still looking outside. The parking lot was empty now, but something felt wrong. He knew those bikers weren't the type to just walk away. Maybe this isn't over yet. Keanu stepped outside first, scanning the area. The sun was still high. The gas station was still quiet. Then he stopped. Sandra noticed his hesitation as she stepped out behind him. What is it? Keanu didn't answer right away. He just looked around. The parking lot seemed empty, but something was different. Sandra followed his gaze. And then she saw it too. Lying on the ground next to the Ferrari was a black motorcycle helmet. It hadn't been there before. Keanu narrowed his eyes. Sandra felt a chill run down her spine. Did they forget it? Keanu took a slow step forward, staring at the object. He didn't pick it up. There was no note. No message. But he didn't need words to understand what it meant. Sandra swallowed hard. She knew. This wasn't over. And maybe it was a trap. Keanu finally moved. He ignored the helmet. He didn't even look at it again. He just opened the car door. Let's go, he said. Sandra didn't argue. She didn't ask questions. She just got in the car quickly. Keanu took one last look around the gas station. The place was quiet. Too quiet. Then, without another word, he started the engine. The red Ferrari roared loudly, breaking the silence. The sound was powerful, filling the empty space around them. Slowly they pulled away. The helmet stayed where it was. Unmoved. Untouched. It was like someone had left it there on purpose. Like someone was watching. Like they were waiting to see what Keanu and Sandra would do. Inside the car, neither of them spoke at first. They drove in silence for a few minutes. The highway stretched ahead, long and straight. Then Sandra finally spoke. Do you think that was on purpose? Keanu kept his eyes on the road. His voice was calm but strong. Yes. Sandra ran a hand through her hair. She was trying to understand what was happening. But why? She asked. If they wanted to do something, wouldn't it have been easier back there? Keanu gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. Some guys don't act right away, he said. They wait for the right moment. Sandra didn't like that answer. She glanced at the rearview mirror. And then, her heart dropped. In the distance, something was coming. Fast. 2 motorcycles. Sandra felt her stomach twist. She looked at them carefully. The bikers weren't just random riders on the road. No, they were following them. She turned to Keanu. Tell me I'm imagining this, she said, her voice shaky. Keanu didn't answer right away. He took a quick glance in the mirror. And there they were. 2 bikers. They weren't in a hurry to pass. They weren't riding like normal bikers on an open highway. They were matching the Ferrari's speed. Silent. Watching. Waiting. Keanu took a deep breath. He was thinking. If he sped up too much, it might look suspicious. If he slowed down, they might get even closer. This was a waiting game. And Keanu wasn't the kind of guy to lose at this kind of game. Sandra let out a slow breath. What do they want? Keanu didn't answer immediately. We're still close to the city, he finally said. They won't do anything here. Sandra clenched her hands into fists. "And what if they wait until we leave the highway?" she asked. Keanu turned to look at her for just a second. Then he said, "Then we won't let that happen." Up ahead, the road was changing. Soon they would reach a curve. After that, the highway would lead into a quieter area. Keanu had to make a choice. He glanced at the road signs. A little ahead, there was an exit ramp. It led to a smaller road, off the highway. It wasn't the best way to the charity event. But that didn't matter anymore. Sandra noticed the look on Keanu's face. "You're about to do something, aren't you?" she asked. Keanu smirked slightly. Not a happy smirk. Not an amused one. A knowing smirk. "Hold on tight," he said. That was all. Then in one quick move he shifted gears and turned the wheel sharply. The Ferrari swerved onto the exit ramp, leaving the main highway behind. The tires screeched against the pavement. In the mirror the bikers reacted instantly. They turned too. They were still following. Sandra bit her lip. "They took the bait," she whispered. Keanu kept his eyes on the road. "Now let's see how far they're willing to go." The new road was different. It was smaller. It had curves. Motorcycles would have an easier time here. A sports car like the Ferrari? Not so much. The bikers knew this. And now they were speeding up. Getting closer. Sandra turned her head, looking outside. One of the bikers, the bigger one, was riding right next to them. He wasn't trying to pass. He was just staring. Right at Keanu. Keanu felt his pulse pick up. Not from fear. From focus. Now he knew. These bikers wanted something. And he wasn't about to wait to find out what. The skinny biker made the first move. He sped up. Now he was dangerously close to the Ferrari. Sandra grabbed the dashboard. "Keanu, they're getting too close." Keanu narrowed his eyes. Then he did something small but smart. He tapped the brakes. Just for a second. The Ferrari slowed down just a little. The skinny biker wasn't expecting that. His bike wobbled. He had to move quickly so he wouldn't lose balance. Keanu took his chance. He gripped the wheel and took a sharp turn. The car slid smoothly through the curve. But for the motorcycles it was harder. The skinny biker fell back. Sandra saw it happen. She smiled a little. "You messed up his timing," she said. Keanu didn't answer. This wasn't over yet. The road was getting even smaller. The bikers weren't giving up. Then, the big one did something shocking. He reached into his jacket. Sandra's eyes widened. "He's got a chain?" Before Keanu could react, the biker swung the chain in the air. Then he threw it straight at the Ferrari's windshield. The chain spun through the air. Sandra gasped. "Keanu?" But Keanu was already reacting. In a split second he turned the steering wheel. Art. The Ferrari swerved to the side. The chain missed the windshield by just a few inches. It slammed onto the road behind them. Sandra let out a shaky breath. "They're crazy?" Keanu kept his focus. Now he knew. This wasn't just a chase. This was an attack. And he wasn't going to wait for the next move. The road was still twisting. The motorcycles were still following. But Keanu was ready. He had a plan. And whatever happened next, he was going to make sure he and Sandra got out of this safe. But first they had to win the chase. And Keanu never lost. Keanu looked at the situation very quickly. The road was narrow with sharp turns everywhere. The bikers were right behind them, waiting for them to make a mistake. They wanted to force Keanu off the road, but Keanu wasn't the kind of man who made mistakes when things got tough. His jaw tightened and he kept his eyes focused on the road. "Hold on, Sandra," he said in a calm but serious voice. Sandra gripped the dashboard tightly. "What are you going to do?" she asked. Keanu took a deep breath. "I'm going to turn the tables." Then he suddenly let go of the accelerator. The red Ferrari slowed down very fast. The bikers did not expect this at all. The big biker, who was about to make another move, almost crashed into the back of the Ferrari. At the last second he had to swerve hard to the side to avoid hitting the car. His bike wobbled and he barely stayed in control. The skinny biker also got thrown off balance. That was exactly what Keanu wanted. The bikers had lost their rhythm. They weren't in control of the chase anymore. Keanu was. Now it was his turn to take action. Keanu quickly shifted gears and pressed the accelerator again. The Ferrari's engine roared loudly as the car sped forward. Now Keanu was leading the chase instead of running from it. The bikers tried to catch up again, but Keanu wasn't going to let them. He moved the car slightly to the side of the road, forcing them to spread out. The skinny biker tried to close in again, but Keanu had a plan. He turned the steering wheel just a little, sending up a thick cloud of dust and small rocks from the side of the road. The dust hit the biker's face, getting in his eyes and making it hard to see. He coughed and tried to wipe his face, but it was too late. His bike shook dangerously. He had to slow down to keep from falling. Now only one biker was left, the big guy. The big guy was different. He was not giving up. He pressed the throttle even harder, making his motorcycle go even faster. He moved right next to the Ferrari, riding dangerously close to Keanu's side. Sandra looked at him and saw his face. He wasn't just angry. He looked embarrassed. He felt like he had lost, and men like him never liked to lose. Keanu understood exactly what the biker was trying to do. The man didn't just want to scare them. He wanted to win. He wanted to push Keanu off the road and make him lose control. But Keanu had a plan. He kept the Ferrari steady, acting like he wasn't worried at all. The biker watched him closely, waiting for Keanu to react. But Keanu didn't move. Then, at the perfect moment, Keanu turned the wheel slightly to the right. It was a tiny movement, but to the biker, it looked like Keanu was trying to hit him. The biker panicked. His hands jerked the handlebars to dodge what he thought was an attack. But he was going too fast and the road was rough. For a second, the bike wobbled. That was all Keanu needed. The biker tried to steady himself, but it was too late. His motorcycle hit the edge of the curb. The bike shook violently, and the big guy had to slam on the brakes to stop himself from falling. Keanu didn't wait. He slammed the accelerator and the Ferrari sped ahead. Sandra looked back. The bikers were getting smaller in the distance. They weren't chasing them anymore. They had lost. But Keanu kept the speed high for a few more miles. Sandra kept looking in the mirror, expecting to see the bikes coming back. But they didn't. When they finally reached a bigger road with lots of other cars, she let out a long sigh. "I think it's over," she said. Keanu kept his eyes on the road. His voice was calm but serious. "For now." Sandra looked at him. "Do you think they'll come back?" Keanu pressed his lips together for a second. "Guys like them don't like losing?" Sandra groaned. "Great. That's exactly what I wanted to hear." Keanu smirked just a little. "Just a guess." Sandra shook her head but laughed. Somehow she knew he was right. The red Ferrari continued driving down the road, blending into the busy traffic. But Keanu kept checking the mirror now and then. Something inside him told him this wasn't over yet. The Ferrari smoothly pulled up to a grand hotel. Bright camera flashes lit up the entrance. Reporters stood outside, snapping pictures. Fancy guests in beautiful dresses and expensive suits walked inside. It was clear that this was a big event. Sandra sighed with relief. "Well, we made it in one piece." Keanu didn't answer right away. He was still looking into the mirror, checking for anything strange. Sandra noticed. "Keanu, are you still thinking about those guys?" Keanu finally turned his eyes away from the mirror. "Let's go inside." "Don't worry." His voice was calm, but deep down something still felt wrong. After a few hours, Sandra was completely relaxed. She was laughing and chatting with the guests, sipping wine. Keanu, on the other hand, needed some quiet. He stepped out of the main hall and took the elevator down to the hotel's parking garage. The place was silent. Only a few dim lights shone on the fancy cars parked there. Keanu walked toward the Ferrari. Then he stopped. His eyes narrowed. There, on the side of the car, was a deep scratch. Someone had done this on purpose. Keanu returned to the ballroom. Sandra was still laughing and having a good time. When she saw him, she raised an eyebrow. "You disappeared. Where were you?" Keanu picked up a champagne glass from a passing waiter. He raised it slightly and changed the subject. "I think we can toast now. The worst is over." Sandra squinted at him. "Are you sure?" Keanu smiled calmly. "Absolutely." They clinked their glasses together. Sandra never knew that on that very same night, a single scratch on a car had ended a battle that could have lasted much longer. Because some fights aren't won with fists or words. Some are settled in silence. And only those who truly understand the game know who really won. If you enjoyed this story, share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories filled with adventure, mystery, and excitement. Your support means the world and it helps keep these stories coming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.